My pleasure.
Terrific, terrific.
But I wound up winning. And so the next thing I know, they're like, you're going to open for Tom Jones in Vegas. I had no act. So, yeah, I know. So I came up with this kind of stuff, and
Is that an improv?
At first.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wound up doing all this stuff, and so people saw that I did voices, and that's how I wound up getting voiceovers.
It's quite an act, yeah.
Thanks. Did you ever do
Still
stand-up?
got it, the kids still got it.
Oh, thanks. Did you ever do stand-up?
No, I always sat down. No.
You would have.
No.
See, you should have, right?
No, I don't do stand-up. I do one-liners if I can remember some of the comics I stole them from. That's about it.
It's
Yeah.
pretty incredible. Should we open up the...
Yeah, you have any questions you'd like to ask us?
Yes. Yes. Do you know why? It's because the puppet didn't move very well when they first, the show, especially HBO was a new network at the time, and when they first started the show, they didn't give much budget. So Kevin Yeager, who made the puppet, didn't have as much money to put all those expensive servos and stuff in the puppet. And so what you heard later on is what I auditioned. But when I came into the studio to start recording, he was like, oh, we have to slow it down because the puppet's mouth doesn't move very well. And I go, okay, let's make him slower and more ominous. And that's what we had to do. And then when the show got popular, they gave him more money to spruce him up, to talk better, and so we could speed him up and make him funny in the way that we wanted to do it. And so that's the reason why. And a lot of people don't know this, but Kevin had made the puppet out of a bunch of spare parts out of his studio, because that's how little money they gave him. And if you look at the Crypt Keeper, Kevin Yeager also made Chucky, and designed some of the Freddy Krueger looks and this kind of thing. He's a very, very talented creature maker. And he took and used Chucky eyes for the Crypt Keeper. So when you go look at the Crypt Keeper, the eyes, those baby blues that he has, are Chucky eyes. They're actually eyeballs from the Chucky dolls. And he had spare in his studio. So that's kind of how it went.
It's very creative.
I know.
And cheap.
Yeah. It's a puppet.
It's works.
We had no idea that kids were watching that show when it originally came on, because it was on HBO. It had nudity, it had language, it was scary and all this stuff. But it makes total sense that people would watch it because it's a puppet. I would have watched it. I collected the comic books as a kid. So we did make a cartoon version, of course, as you know, and a game show even and that kind of thing. But there's a bigger fan base for it, as probably is for your show too, than there ever was, because people who grew up with it are very passionate.
They're all here today. They keep telling me you voiced my childhood.
That's great.
You kind of grew up, didn't you? You kind of did. Terrific.
You voiced a few generations of childhoods, I think, over the years. And amazing.
Alan, can you talk a little bit about how you found the voice of Falcor?
Yes, that's interesting too. Wolfgang, what was his last name? Peterson, yeah. He came to Los Angeles to audition. They'd already created the movie, they already had the puppet. I call him a puppet. He was about 10 feet long. Lovely furry thing that you see. And I guess maybe half a dozen people went in and auditioned for him, and I did the audition. And then I was notified the next day I had it, and they would fly me to Munich, because they recorded at the Bavarian studios where they filmed it. So I went over there, and they played me in the ADR room, where I had to put a voice to it. Because all I had was the film. They didn't have a voice for Falcor. So I watched it, and I saw this sweet thing, I said, okay, I'm ready. And I recorded it, and Wolfgang said, well, that's very good, thank you very much, that'll be all. I said, no, just wait a minute, play back for me. So he played it back, and I said, this isn't what I want to do. I need to do it again. He says, all right, you come back tomorrow. So I recorded it the next day, and that's the version that you see. The first day was technically correct, but no heart. And the second day, Falcor had heart and feeling and variation. And that's what she says, that's very good. I said, good. Thank you. He said, wait 1 minute here, there's some other character. He says, it's the rock bite. I said, oh God, show me. I said, okay, I know what I'll do. So, he already had this, you know, Irish children. I said, oh, okay, let's go. Irish quartz is looking at the picture. I said, thank you. He said, wait, there's one more character. There's Gabork. I said, what's Gabork? So I did that. Thank you. Oh, there's a little narration at the end. Would you mind doing that? They got 4 voices for the price of 1, and I was underpaid at that, but this is my reward.
You know, I've followed Alan and seen him, you know, at a few conventions here and there, and I mean, there's voices that you've done that I didn't even know you did.
I forget them too.
And then when I hear those things, I see similarities in our careers that I never even realized. Like last year or the year before last, I did the voice of Elliot in Pete's Dragon, and it was a similar kind of situation where they brought me in to do they shot at New Zealand, so they needed some looping for an actor that was from New Zealand that they couldn't bring to the States to do. So they knew that I would be able to voice match him. And then the director was like, you know, I'm kind of a big fan of the Crypt Keeper, and I know you do animals and creatures. Would you give a shot at doing Elliot, the dragon? And I was like, okay. And it was like you. At first I was like, well, that's technically good, but let me see if I can find something that really brings heart to it. And it wound up being the thing that made a big difference, because they had already animated almost all of it. And the poor kid, who was a brilliant actor, had been playing with a tennis ball on a pole, you know, so his performance was so beautiful, but the thing he was playing on was it didn't have the same kind of heart to it. And so I wound up, you know, doing the same thing. Of course, they got me doing a bunch of stuff for them for what I should have got paid. But it's so funny to hear you say that. It's like, I'm kind of like Alan Light.
You know, sometimes with He-Man, I would be out of town. As a matter of fact, it was a 6-week period when I was doing a film in London, 2 days, and then coming back and doing pickups for Hanna-Barbera and Filmation, and then out on for 6 weeks back and forth. So when I wasn't there, John Irwin, who was doing He-Man, he would do it alone. So then they said, okay, when I came in, they signed me the script. Can you just read it? I said, wait a minute. Play John's line, so I have a feed to work off of. Because I don't want to say, I'm fine, if he says, no. If he says, no, I am. I say, I'm fine. So I had to play off of him. So each time I would hear what John did, and then I could answer in turn. So it really sounded like we were in the same room, which we love to do when we live in town, which is most of the time.
Very often you have to do a lot of the voice work in a void without the other actors there. Sometimes you don't even know what the character looks like. They don't even know what the character looks like. Sometimes they're going to animate to what he did or what I did. You know, it's a very interesting process. Sometimes, you know, as in, you know, the tale or Pete's Dragon, they've already done that, and we're trying to match what they've brought and put in front of us. So it takes you know, there's some brilliant actors, and we've probably both had this experience, where there's some brilliant actors that show up and they just can't do it very well.
It's a different medium.
Yeah.
It's different than being on screen or on stage. It's only, everything is in your voice. It starts here in your imagination. And then you have to, if you're gifted, be able to translate that into a reality of a voice. That's the difference. I mean, I know I've heard some. I went to see the movie The Smurfs. I played Ben and the Smurfs. So I went to see the movie of The Smurfs. I walked out after 10 minutes. It was those people had no, they were name actors who had no idea of how to do a cartoon character. It's totally different. Cartoon
I was in
characters
the
have
new
to be real.
Smurfs, by the way.
They have to
So,
be-
just so you know.
What did you say?
I was in the new Smurfs, just so you know.
There's the exception.
But I
What
do.
did you play?
I played Crazy Smurf. But no, there's a caveat. There's a caveat to this because I agree with what you said. Because nobody that I knew that were good actors, well, I mean, Jonathan Winters, who was brilliant, was Papa Smurf, whatever, but Grandpa Smurf. But so many of these people they just didn't get it. And the only reason that I got Crazy Smurf was because they needed somebody that could go, and make all these weird noises and stuff. Otherwise, my part would have gone to whoever was on the most popular.
You replaced the sound effects too.
Was that?
So you replaced the sound effects man.
That's right, the Foley guy.
Yeah, did you work
Gerald
with
Boing Boing, remember Gerald Boing Boing?
Did you work with Johnny Winters?
I have. We did a comedy special on Showtime together when I did stand up, and he was crazy as could be.
That's right.
And talented as could be. He was insane.
You say hello to him when you do 20 minutes.
What's that? Do I do Gene Simmons? Oh. He was asking if we were Gene Simmons because he came in for a Gene Simmons panel. We can be if you want us to. Yes. It depends on the style of the video game. He was asking if it was different video games were different than animation. Some of them feel like an animated cartoon. Some of them feel like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's a script, it's action bound, and then the rest of them are just like line after line after line, where you do them 10 times, and now I need you to scream and die 10 times, and now, sometimes it is tedious, voice ripping work, and not everybody likes to do it. And there's no residuals and stuff involved with it, so sometimes we're like, you know what, I'll pass on that because this is my instrument. I have to make my living with this. But there are some of the stuff that's really fun where there are other actors in the room, and most of them not. But you're working almost like it's like I said, like a Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of script where it's action based and bringing that to life. So it really depends on the actual game.
It's hard. I used to do them, but I gave up on it because it just ripped my throat up with all that screaming. But you have to do 3 or 4 versions of the line because you pick which way you're going to go when you're playing. And so I did a lot of Russians in those days. And so that was easy to have different points of view when you're Russian. You get it, folks?
Do you ever do any toys?
Toys?
Yeah.
Animated toys?
No, just like, talking Mattel toys or anything like that.
No.
I did one toy. I'm sure they probably, they had Crypt Keeper dolls and stuff like
When you
that.
pull the cord that says something?
Yeah, it was more like, it was the guys that did Furby.
You're down here somewhere, up here.
Right.
Pull the cord.
I did one, the guys that did Furby, because it was when you were saying that you had to do all those different versions of it because depending on what the person picked, it would change attitude. And there was a toy, it was called Tchaikovsky, and it was the guys that did Furby. And depending on how the kid treated the toy, the furry toy, whatever, it would take on different attitudes and would treat the kid back in a different way. But it had so they had me do, I had to do 8 versions of every line. And it was the thing that they were like, oh, you come for a couple of sessions, we'll pay you a couple of grand a session, which was pretty good money, but for a toy that sells a lot, it's not great, you should really get paid a lot because you make a lot of money off your voice. And you'll be done in a couple of sessions. And it's like, okay, I'll do it. They wound up, They have so many versions of it. It took so long to record it that I think I wound up like, I don't know how many sessions. It must have been 25 sessions because I wound up making $75,000 for this toy. And then, you know, I think the people who developed it got like $2 million up to make this toy, and it never saw the light of day. I don't think it ever wound up on the shelves, you know. So you see what gets wasted. And video games can be like that too sometimes, you know. It's an interesting kind of thing that we do sometimes.
I thought that was really a hard work.
It is. It can be, for sure. Another question? Yes.
How was it working with the Crypt Keeper Jam?
Oh, the Crypt Jam was a lot of fun. Thank you for asking. You had brought. You brought me the. Was that you that brought the album? Somebody brought it today. It was cool. They had it on vinyl. The Crypt Jam, you know, it tells you the Crypt got interesting enough, and Thriller came out, so they were like, oh, we got to do, you know, we had done a Christmas album, you know, low title bomb, you didn't bomb my dad and mom, and it flew off the shelf, you know, and it was 17 of the best, you know, Christmas tunes you've ever heard, and they're hysterical. It's a great. They made one pressing of them, sold every single one of them the first season, and they never made more. And people ask me about it all the time. If you want to go get one on eBay, they're like $60 or whatever because there's not enough of them out there. So this is typical of that kind of thing. The Crypt Jam they made as they were going to do a video. So it was going to be like a Thriller type video. Kevin Yeager, who made The Crypt Keeper, was going to direct it. He's a very good director. And they got some really good popping, you know, dancers and that kind of stuff. They got Chucky Booker, who was like a stand-up. Remember when I used to do stand-up, if you were going on too long, like Jonathan Winters, they'd just turn off the mic on you.
Get the book.
Yeah. But they got Chucky Booker, who used to write music for Janet Jackson, to write it. And everybody loved it. And we were going to release it on Halloween. And so they called me up and said, you're going to be promoting it on Howard Stern. So I went in, Chucky showed up and I recorded it. He let me improvise, we had so much fun. You know, he didn't know that I came from a musical background of doing, you know, Broadway musicals and stuff. So, which is a whole other story of how literally you get paid doing theater. But, so it came out really good. And so I had to get on with Howard Stern, you know, from LA on the phone. And of course, back then, and Howard's still like this, but back then, if he didn't know you or know your thing, he immediately attacked it. He just would like try to make you sweat. And so I would turn into the Crypt Keeper and I'd go, I'm just like you, Howard, I'd love to be hated. And he would be cracking, he couldn't help himself, he was laughing, he goes, you know, I don't actually hate the Crypt Keeper, it's the puppet I hate, you're hysterical, blah, blah, blah. You know, we talked, he goes, what is this CD? Is it like the, you know, like the William Shatner album, or what is this? I go, no, it's really good. Chucky Booker, who writes for, you know, Janet Jackson wrote it and all this stuff. He goes, oh, let's play some of it. He goes, oh, this is great. At first he was like, yeah, it's pretty good, but I'm tired of it already. And he goes, how come you can't break CDs? And he's trying to pretend like he's breaking it on the, you know, radio and stuff. So it was really kind of fun. It actually wound up being kind of a cool thing. The Christmas album, I showed up and they had all the tracks already recorded with a full orchestra. I mean, I don't know how much they paid, but it was unbelievable. And I just had a blast doing one fun, you know, if you've never heard it, I knew a surgeon who used to play in OR at Christmas time, which I don't know, some of the stuff's kind of very funny and morbid. Are you showing us your armpit, or are you raising your hand? Are you showing us your armpit, or are you raising your hand?
That's Mark.
Do you have a question? Oh, that's a good question. She wanted to know if there was going to be any more Crypt Keeper movies. You know, they want to, but what happens is, you know, they're all based on a comic book. And the comic book is owned by EC Comics. And EC Comics doesn't want to give us the rights back yet. Evidently, we're either not coming up with enough money or something, but we haven't been able to secure the rights to do more, because everybody wants us to do more, but we haven't yet. So we're hoping we do. So we're going to try. So I hope that you get to grow up on some of the cool movies that we got to grow up on, the Tales from the Crypt. Hey, how about Tales from the Crypt cartoon? Did you know that? Yeah, your parents might be able to find them on DVD online or whatever, pretty cheaply, but they're really good. They're fun. You like Johnny because you're like, oh, how much do I need this month for $19.95? Totally. You were like, not only that, they would like at the end of the session, because it would be hard on your voice, how you do like a library and stuff for them. Because we do like what they call a library, you go get to be a short library, and they'd use what they wanted to use. And I would try to crack up the guy in the booth, and Kevin Yeager was recording it, and be like, or like, whatever, I would just keep going, whatever it would be, And it was really more about the character than it was about me, because it was like this guy, and when Alan was describing earlier, you find that these characters that love what they're doing, like evil characters love being evil. I mean, that's the best way to make them evil, is make them love what they're doing. You don't try to make them mean, you try to make them love what they're doing, And the Crypt Keeper loves these puns. I remember auditioning in the room in Kevin Yeager's studio for the part, and there was a lot of illustrious actors and voice actors and comedians who were auditioning. And they were looking at the copy with all these bad puns and going, be careful what you ask for, you may get it. They're like, who wrote this crap? I'm going, they don't get it. This is like Alfred Hitchcock doing puns, This is who loved puns, and this is like his Shakespeare. He loved saying this stuff. So I found myself, when I was doing it for Kevin Yeager, he was laughing. I found myself laughing at my own jokes. And so that's how it took hold, pretty similar to what you were saying. This laugh, and when I've been thinking more of Hamilton, because I used to do the Wizard of Oz thing, and and of course the character, like he said, he saw as a skeleton. This character had holes in his throat, and rotting flesh, and that's where all the texture came in. And that's how it evolved. But that was exactly.
You're skinny, you're thunder. Holes in the neck.
Oh, I love that. First of all, I ran into, they parody you too, did you know that? On Robot Chicken. And people are like, you haven't seen it.
Do a parody of a parody.
Yeah, you haven't seen it. But people were writing and go, have you seen this? Are you wanted? Is that you? And obviously it's not me. First of all, they couldn't hire me because they'd have to pay for the rights. But since they're doing a parody, they don't have to pay for it. But I ran into, I know Seth Green, who's one of the producers on the show, who you all know from, the Spy, who Shaggy movies and all that stuff. And, he said that one of his writers, one of the guys who runs the show, is just obsessed with the Crypt Keeper and Skeletor. And so they do, the Crypt Keeper is goes to, Horror High, Monster High, and starts screaming at the kids for stealing his stick. It's like, that pun was mine! What are you doing? And that kind of thing. But it's hysterical. I mean, who wouldn't want to be parodied? That's the best compliment to what we do, to have guys imitate us. I mean, I can't tell you how many tattoos that I see. Do you get tattoos of Skeletor?
Why do what?
Do you get people coming up to you? Do you get people coming up? We're gonna do a show now. We're gonna do a show. We're gonna do a magic trick.
Get people coming up to me, what, about their tattoos?
They have tattoos of skeletor.
Oh, yeah, I know, I see that. There's a fellow came to the table earlier, skeletor on both arms. I said, you come back tomorrow, I'll sign my autograph, and then you can have a tattoo under there. So see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Happens with the crypt keeper too.
Yeah.
But that's a huge compliment. I have been taking pictures of all of them, and I have a huge library of people's crypt keeper tattoos.
You're sick.
I tell you,
It's pornographic.
because they have me under the skin. But I have a guy that's setting me up a fan page because I have a lot of, some of you are my Facebook friends, and as Al will tell you, there's more people than they allow you to have them. But so I'm setting up a fan page so that I can have as many people follow what I do as possible. And one of the first things I'm going to do is start posting those crypt keeper tattoos. Some of them are pretty disgustingly bad. Some of them are quite extraordinary. So
Come to your table with your show me, I want to see that.
yeah, well, I'm not wearing them, Alan.
Oh,
No, you mean on my phone. I do have some on my phone.
found out again.
But it's a huge compliment to be parodied and to have a character. I mean, the fun thing is that our characters are much more famous and much more long-term than probably some of the things we've done on camera, because, I mean, some of the, is my fly down? Oh, I see. Talking about pornographic. But these characters, it's really joy for us to be the kind of actors that get to bring characters to life that are memorable. I'm sure you remember when you used to do Love American Style or something like that. Where,
Oh, sure, I remember that.
yeah, right. When people used to come up to you on the street. I actually had gone to Universal Studios. There's something going on behind me, right? Anyway, I was at Universal Studios with some friends. You remember they used to have a whole cartoon section over there when they used to do cartoons, and I was doing Problem Child. And so we get these free tickets to go, and jump lines and stuff. And I'm in the bathroom and I feel somebody in the stall with me. And I turn around and there's a little boy about this tall with a pencil and a pad. And I'm thinking, holy crap, someone's gonna walk here and think, whatever. I mean, the kid did everything except look at me and go, me too. But I turned around and went, hey buddy, how about you go wait outside? He goes, my mom said I could have your autograph. I go, yeah, but not in the bathroom, okay? When I walked outside, I kind of, read the riot act to their parents. I was like, you can't just send the kid in the bathroom alone with a pencil and pad to get your autograph. But I mean, we run the luxury in a lot of ways, although we've had our days of being quite recognizable and stuff. There's a certain amount of freedom and fun to be able to bring our characters to life without having to give up ourselves, to the public all the time. And of course, we love to come here and spend time with you guys specifically because it's much more, it's not general. Actually, we can talk about things that you're interested in what you've done and your feelings of our work, and we really appreciate it.
I had assumed the role of a major movie star one time. Chris knows the story. There was a restaurant called Kate Mantalini's on Wilshire Boulevard, and it was a block from the Motion Picture Academy, and they showed movies to members. So I went there for dinner without a reservation, and there were like 10 people ahead of me waiting for a table. So I walked in and she said, your name please? And I said, Robert Redford. She said, come this way. She took me to the only empty table, the best table, and I said, you never even looked up. She said, I don't care, I love your answer.
I think they have another one coming up, right? So maybe we should wrap it up.
Okay?
I want to apologize to our monitor because our moderator because we just sort of took over. But there was somebody there to ask questions for us.